All right, so our next guest looks like he just arrived. We have a quick intro for Mr. Andy Neary. He's going to be talking about leadership mindset to grow your business. So Andy is a speaker and a coach that is helping others with confidence, needing to grow professionally and personally. He does a great job at blending his stories from his professional baseball career into practical steps for his audience to help them build relationships, help them build their business, and help them transform their life. Outside of being a speaker and a coach, Andy is also a healthcare strategist, working with small and mid-sized employers to build plans for their employees. He is also a contributing author to the Amazon bestseller Breakthrough the Status Quo, and he is coming to us from Fort Collins, Colorado today. Andy, I got a chance to pull up some stats on you, and I found a Andy Neary rookie card. I didn't know what the value is, so I'm gonna put it in a nice little case and hopefully get some money on eBay.
I don't know if it's worth the case you just purchased to put it in.
Well, it'll be a good keepsake for me then.
By the way, can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Andy, and mute ourselves, and you can take it away from there.
Awesome. Well, first, I want to thank the Alliance for this opportunity. Guys, as you know, this whole year has been rather interesting. And as a keynote speaker, the whole setup of what you do with your keynote talks these days has definitely changed. It's gone from really nice stages to your dining room and living room floor. And so my goal today, the beauty in virtual keynotes though, is I think you can make them more tactical than you probably may have on stage, in an auditorium or something like that. So my goal today is to share some stories with you that I think could definitely inspire you, share stories from my life that taught me lessons that I think I can pass on to you. And then you'll notice here I got a whiteboard because I do want to do some tactical stuff for you as leaders that I think could be extremely helpful for you. So does that sound good? I'll just assume yes, everybody's muted, I know. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to kick it off this way. I want everybody to close their eyes for a second. And I want you to go back to your childhood. And I want you to think about what it was you wanted to be when you were a grown-up. What did you want to be when you grew up? Get that vision, that image in your head. For some of you, it might have been an astronaut, a firefighter, a teacher, a nurse. Maybe it was you wanted to become an entrepreneur. You wanted to become a small business owner. If you are literally doing what you dreamt up of as a kid, consider yourself lucky, right? Well, you can open your eyes because right now I want to share a story with you about how my mindset, cost me an opportunity to live out my childhood dream. You see, I was born into a baseball family, and my childhood dream was to become a professional baseball player. My dad was an average college baseball player, but he turned his talent on the baseball field into an extremely successful high school coaching career. He was the longtime head coach in the hometown I grew up in Wisconsin. I played for him, and he's now one of the winningest coaches in Wisconsin high school state history. So growing up in that house gave me the chance to have the tools, the mentorship, the knowledge to become a really good baseball player, right? The knowledge to actually play bigger. And that's what I want to talk to you about today is, as a leader, what can you be doing today to play bigger? And so when I got into high school, I had a lot of success. And by the time my senior season rolled around, I had a chance to play bigger. Going into my senior year, I had accepted one scholarship, the scholarship offer I had on the table, and that was to play baseball for Winona State University in Minnesota, Division II program. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted to play Division I baseball, but I had a slight challenge. You see, I knew going into college that I wasn't going to be both a pitcher and a shortstop like I was in high school. My chance to play at the college level, at the collegiate level, was going to be on the mound as a pitcher. And so the challenge I faced was I stood 5'9" and weighed 145 pounds my senior year. Not what I would call an over-intimidating presence on the mound. But I also knew that I had put the work in both here with my mind and both off the field in the weight room with my skills, with my mechanics as a pitcher to play Division I baseball. So we get to the end of the season, no scholarship offers, but I have one last chance to play big. I have one last chance to prove myself. It was the first round of the playoffs. I was pitching that night, and I also knew that the coaching staff from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee was going to be there, Division I program in Wisconsin. So that night, I knew I had put the work in to be the best I could be for my team and to be the best I could be for my chances to play Division I baseball. And for the baseball fans in the audience, you'll appreciate this, because that night I threw a one-hitter. I literally gave up a hit on the first pitch of the game, and that was the only runner that got on that night. So later that night, I get a call from the head coach at UWM, and I was offered a scholarship. Boom. Here I am, about ready to play Division I baseball. Now, here's the problem I made. You see, I went off brand a little bit when I got to college because I thought playing bigger literally meant bigger. I knew I had to put some weight on because I only weighed 145 pounds going into college, the college baseball season. So I pounded the weights. I hit the weight room. And by the time our season rolled around as a freshman, I no longer was a 5'9", meekly 145-pound pitcher. I was a 5'9", 170-pound pitcher full of muscle. And I took this magic powder for the college athletes who were in college sports about 20, 25 years ago. You'll remember this magic powder called creatine. Took the creatine, gained the weight, gained the muscle. But again, I realized that I had made a big mistake, because when you're a pitcher, the last thing you want to do is have a muscle-bound bicep. So my first 2 seasons at UWM were terrible statistically. By the time my sophomore season came to an end, I wanted to quit. I wanted to transfer. I wanted to give it all up. How many have been there before with your business right now? How many have been to that point where you're like, oh, how can I keep doing this? It's a struggle for many entrepreneurs, right? But something happened between my sophomore and junior seasons. Though I didn't have the confidence in myself at that time, my team did, because they named me captain. Now, all the way from Pee-wee's, Little League to high school, I'd always been the captain of the teams I was on. I'd always led by example. And here was my chance again in my final 2 years of college baseball to lead by example. So when I received that nomination, I said, Andy, it is time to get back to work. It is time to put all the work off the field, the right work. It is time to go to work on your mindset, and it is time to start leading by example. And that's exactly what I did. I worked on my mechanics. I worked in the weight room with a different perspective. And I put all the work off the field that allowed me to be great on it. And by the time my senior season rolled around or came to an end, I gave myself a chance to play bigger yet again by signing a contract to pitch in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. Now, I wish I could keep telling you guys stories about how I overcame the odds being a 5'9" pitcher who didn't throw overly hard and I made it all the way to the major leagues. But this is where the good stories end. Because when I got to pro ball, again, I went completely off brand. All that work I had put in off the field that made me so great, all the leadership I had shown in high school and college as a captain, leading by example, all the positive reinforcement I had in my brain that told me I belong here went away. In fact, let me share a story with you that I think defines my pro baseball career pretty well. It was at the time I was pitching in Helena, Montana for the Helena Brewers. And I can remember this trip, this road trip specifically, because it was our first time playing over in Missoula, and we were playing the Missoula Osprey, who are a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. And I remember the bus ride from Helena up over McDonald Pass into Missoula, and the coaching staff had warned us that the crowd in Missoula gets pretty rowdy. Got a bunch of college kids there. The University of Montana is in Missoula. It's summer, school's out. Kids love to come to the games, drink a bit too much, and they love to make every game a nightmare for the opposing team. So here we are. It's the first game of the series. And I can remember the game like it was last night because, number one, it was hot and humid in Missoula, which is extremely odd for that part of the country. I remember the sunset was this burning gold sunset setting over the mountains because there were wildfires burning around Missoula, and the stadium was filled. There were about 6,000 people in the stands. And that night, our starting pitcher was terrible. So about the third inning, call comes down to the bullpen, get Neary up, get him loose right away. So I jump up, I grab a ball, grab my gloves, stretch out my arms, stretch out my legs, and I start warming up. Now, to tell you how bad the starting pitcher was that day, I was about 10 throws into my warm-ups, and here I am already running into the mound, right into this loud, obnoxious, drunk crowd. So I get to the mound, grab the ball from Dan Norman, the Helena Brewers manager, and I look to the on-deck circle to see who I'm going to be facing right away. And it's Andres Torres, the top prospect in the Diamondbacks organization. So now I'm jacked, right? Here's my chance to play bigger. Here I am in pro baseball, playing on the same field with guys that went to Texas, LSU, Creighton, Wichita State. I belong, right? Here's my chance to make a statement. So I start warming up. And as I start warming up, the crowd starts chanting. And little by little, the chanting gets louder. And after my third warm-up pitch, I can now hear what they're chanting. How can you pitch when you're 5'6"? How can you pitch when you're 5'6"? Now, in that moment, my mind went somewhere it shouldn't have. Instead of getting jacked up, I let my mind listen to the crowd. I said, yeah, who am I? What right do I have to stand on this mound? I mean, I'm 5'9", not 5'6". I don't throw overly hard. I wasn't a high draft pick. What right do I have to be in pro baseball and face the best like Andres Torres because I'm average? And that truly defined my baseball career. From there, it was downhill. I lasted 2 years in pro baseball, and before you knew it, I was out of baseball and on to my business career. And that journey from Pee-wees to Little League to high school to college baseball and on to pro baseball taught me one very important lesson that I want to pass on to you guys today. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about. Whether it's winning in sports, winning in business, or just winning in life, it is about showing up every day and being at your best so you can bring your best to everybody else in your life, whether it's your family, your teammates, or your clients. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is staying on brand every single day, leading by example every single day, and clearly communicating your leadership to your team. Because moving forward, that is what is going to define the true leader of tomorrow. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today, is what can we do right now as leaders of our organizations to step up, to stand out, to lead by example, so that our teammates want to follow us, and so that our clients want to do business with us, and our target audience is dying to have us as their partner. So let's level set. Let's start where we are today. Anybody, when you look in the leadership playbook, anybody see what has happened in 2020? Was that part of the leadership playbook? Think about that. I mean, go back to 2012. For the last 8 years, we have had probably the greatest economy we have ever had, right? If you started a business, if you were an entrepreneur, it's one of the easiest times to become an entrepreneur, right? Heck, I'm an entrepreneur. I started a coaching business. But then 2020 happened. And that's the challenge everybody faces, because as a leader right now, I think there's 3 things we all want. We want growth, right? As leaders, we want growth for our team, and we want growth for our business. We want significance. I hope everybody here in this call today has started a business to make an impact, whether it's with your family, your finances, the people you serve, your community. You want significance. You want to make an impact. But most of all right now, I think what we want is certainty. And that is probably the biggest challenge that 2020 has presented to all of us, is looking in the future. There's anything but certainty right now, right? And so what can we do as leaders of our organizations to step up and stand out? And what I want to show you today is what it's going to take for you to lead by example every single day and not just lead merely by title. And there's really three things I think about right now when I look at the leader of the future. There are three traits, three personality traits, three characteristics I think that have to define every leader of the future. Number one, what's your brand? Who do you represent every time you get in front of your team? Every time you post something on social media? Every time you get on a call with a prospective client? Because the second you open your mouth, you are sharing your personal brand. So we're gonna dive into that. How do you define your brand? Who you want to be perceived as? The second thing is mastering daily habits and time management. Now that's my specialty with my coaching, but mastering daily habits and the ability to master time management right now is more important than it has ever been. I've talked to so many people lately, business professionals, who have gone so far away from their daily routine because you're now playing both business leader, father, husband, wife, mother, all at the same time. And the third thing is the communication. What are you doing to communicate? How are you clearly communicating to your team? And how are you clearly communicating to your audience right now, your target audience that you want to do business so you can grow your organization? Those are the three things I want to dive into today. But most importantly, I think I really want to focus on this, the mindset. Because when I go back to playing professional baseball, the three mindset failures that stick out in my head for me that caused me to fail to live out my childhood dream was, number one, I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to fit in. When I got to pro baseball, like I said, I was playing baseball with guys who went to much bigger colleges. I was playing alongside guys who were drafted, signing bonuses worth millions of dollars. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to stand out. I didn't perceive myself as equal to them. Number two, I feared judgment. One thing about being a professional athlete, if there's anybody on the call that has been one in their past, you will completely get this, or just an athlete in general. You are judged every single day. In sports, it's literally being judged by stats. Now, the stats we see today and that we're being judged by, unfortunately, in today's society, is the likes, the comments on social media. You could judge yourself by the stats you see with your bottom line, your P&L statements. But in pro sports, what makes it so unique is when I was playing for the Helena Brewers, I was not only competing with that batter in the batter's box, I was actually competing with my own teammates. I was being judged against my own teammates because each and every one of us were trying to get promoted. The coaching staff was trying to get promoted. The umpires were trying to get promoted. Everybody on that field was looking for a promotion, which led to very interesting behavior and communication, which we're going to address today. The last mindset failure I had in pro baseball, though, and I think this was the most important one, and it's the most important mindset belief or perspective an entrepreneur has to have, is I feared failure. I didn't want to fail. Every time I failed on the mound, every loss I had on the mound was devastating to me. I would let it cripple me for days. And that fear of failure, when I would step out on the mound for the Helena Brewers, that fear of failing in the moment caused me to pitch to the level I knew I was truly capable of. And that same fear of failure right now is crippling entrepreneurs. One of the things I had to learn, I'm sure you've had to learn too, as an entrepreneur, somebody running a small business, or if you are a leader inside a small business, you've got to be okay with failure. We fail every single day, and probably no more often than we have here in 2020, right? And so if there's one important point I can make to you guys today as leaders of your organizations, of your teams, of your families, is you can't let those limiting mindset beliefs impact your success. Understand failure is okay. Understand that you need to stand out today if you are going to be a good husband, a good wife, a good father, an unbelievable business. And I want to show you, walk you through those 3 traits today: the brand, the habits and the time management, and then the communication, mainly in the virtual world, that I think can help you guys all achieve that today. Now, with questions, if you guys have any as I walk through this, because I've kind of made this somewhat workshop-ish, feel free to ask. I don't know, Shay, if you want to collect the questions at the end, we can answer some questions. But let's dive into this, guys. Let's start diving into the branding. This is where the teaching and the workshop begins. One of the most important things you can do as a leader today is define what you want your brand to be. How do others perceive who you are? Again, I'm going to use sports as an analogy. If you look at most professional athletes out there, the ones who've made it all the way, most of them have a personal brand today, right? Some you like, some you don't, but they have a clearly defined personal brand. People know exactly who they are. They know exactly where they're coming from. And I always find it interesting in sports. Why do teams still cut those athletes a huge paycheck when they have their own brand? And it's because they put butts in the seats and they put wins on the board. And that's what having a good brand can do for you. Now, as a leader, when it comes to your branding, there are several layers you want to think about when it comes to how others are perceiving you. The first layer is reputation. What is your reputation as a leader right now? Whether it's virtual on Zoom or in the conference room, what is the reputation you have? The next level is appearance. How are you appearing to your team right now? One thing I see more often than not today, and I was guilty of probably right away when COVID hit, was what is your appearance when you are in front of your team, especially on Zoom? Because with reputation and appearance, guess what? That is how people quickly make a perception of you, even before you have opened your mouth. Because after that, you have body language. What is the body language you're conveying to your team? You have the tone of your voice, the words coming out of your mouth, followed by the point you're trying to make. And if any of those go wrong at any point, you quickly lose your team, you quickly lose your clients. Great example of this right now is what we are going through in this moment. We are in the middle of probably one of the most heated presidential races in the history of this country, right? Whether you're on the right side or the left side, if I were to throw up an image right now of Donald Trump, you're going to have one immediate perception or the other. If I throw up an image of Barack Obama, you're going to have an immediate reaction or perception. And the second you have that perception about that person, good or bad, if it's bad, I don't care what that individual is about to say, you will not hear them. You will not hear their point or the words coming out of their mouth. And so that perception of who you are and the brand you are conveying has to be dialed in, and you can never go off brand. So here's an exercise. I told you I want this to be tactical. Here's an exercise I want to walk you guys through that I think could really help you define your personal brand that you want to convey as a leader if you haven't done this already. I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper, and I got my trusty whiteboard here. And I want you to take a minute. We're going to do a shortened version of this exercise. I want you to take a minute, and I want you to ask yourself this question. If you were not in the room and your entire team was in that room talking about you, what words and phrases would you want them saying when they're talking about you? Not what you think they would be saying about you. What do you want them saying about you? And there's usually 2 types of words and phrases. There's foundational words and phrases. Who have you always been? When somebody describes you, what are some foundational words or phrases that have always described you? And then there's going to be some aspirational words and phrases. Maybe you are not that person today, but you're striving to be. So take a minute and just write down 4, 5, 6 different words or phrases from top to bottom that come to mind. If your team was in the room right now, what would you want them saying about you? Give you about 15 more seconds. Okay. You can put your pen down, look down at those words. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to play this little exercise, and you can do this at some point before the week is over, after the talk is over here. Here's what you want to do. Your piece of paper should probably look like this, right? You've got some words, phrases. I wrote down smart, caring, fun, and empathic. Now we're going to play what's called the game frame. This is something I got from my coach, and it's a very powerful exercise to determine what your brand is. Here's what I want you to do. Any college basketball fans? I can see most people, so show of hands. Perfect. You know what an NCAA tournament bracket looks like, right? That's what we're about to do. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the top 2 words that you have on your list. Doesn't matter what the order is. In this case, it's smart and caring, and I want you to answer this question. If you could only pick one of those words or phrases right now, if only one could move on, which one wins? Now you're going to go down to the 3rd and 4th word. Here in this case, it's fun and empathic. You're going to do the same thing. Only pick one. Which word, which phrase best describes how you want to be talked about? And you keep going down that list. Now, if you've got an odd number, that means that that word or phrase doesn't play anybody, right? It automatically advances to the next round. Now, you go to round 2 and you play it all over again. In this case, I have caring and fun moving on. If I can only pick one word or phrase, which one wins? You do it again until you get a winner of the tournament, just like an NCAA bracket. In this case, I wrote caring was the winning word or phrase. That becomes your core brand principle, number 1. Whatever comes out on top is number 1. Now, here's the key to the game frame exercise. Once caring wins, it has to come off the board because it's done, and whatever it's played way back in that opening round advances. In this case, it would be smart, and now I play it all over again. And you do that until you get your top 4. This is called your core 4. So I know I'm doing a very shortened version of this, but take time this week, this weekend, next week to do this exercise. List out all the words and phrases you would want your team to describe about you. Heck, it could be your clients. Figure out what your top 4 words and phrases are, and that becomes your core brand, core personal brand. Those are the words and phrases that become the judge and jury of what you do, how you make decisions, how you appear, and you never go off brand. It is so easy right now in this virtual world to get away from your personal brand, but as a leader, you have to stay on brand as much as you can. All right, that's trait number 1, working on who you are, how you want to be perceived, and the brand you want to convey to your team in the market. The second trait is mastering daily habits and time management. With a show of hands, again, for the few people that I can see, anybody feel like you've struggled a little bit with habits and time management for the past 6 months? I think we can all agree. One of the phrases that has absolutely blown me away the past 6 months is the COVID-19 being or referencing gaining 19 pounds over the last 6 months because you really haven't done anything. It's like, remember when you were a freshman in college and you discovered alcohol and late night pizza? So many right now are getting away from their habits that made them successful. They're getting away from time management and letting the calendars own them. What I want to walk you through right now, because I believe this might be the biggest trait or trait you need to have as a leader. This is where the leading by example comes in. What I want to walk you through are 2 things right now. 1, the power of prioritization. Number 2, I want to walk you through what I believe is the perfect day, planning the perfect day. As a leader, what can you do to show up as your best every single day and then be your best for your team and your clients? And heck, I think this is going to help you convey the same message or bring the same skill set to your team to be more effective, getting more done in less time. The first thing I want you to do, again, quick exercise, is I want you to think about all the roles you have to play as a leader within your organization right now. One thing I think that makes small business, mid-sized businesses unique is as a leader, you probably play multiple roles, right? You're a producer. You probably grow the business in one way, shape, or form. You play manager. You're managing people or your team, maybe a book of business. And you're also the leader of your organization. So balancing those three roles every week is extremely difficult. What I want you to do with this exercise is just like you did with your brand. I want you to take all the roles and major tasks you as the leader have to accomplish every single week. And again, you don't need to do this right now, but I want you to take time to make that list, just like you did with those words and phrases to describe your brand. What are the main roles, main activities, main priorities you have to do every single week? And then just like you did with the brand, you're going to play the game frame, and you're going to use that little game to break it down to what your top priorities are. Because I think one mistake we as leaders of our organizations make is we put equal weight on everything we do. And that's just not the case. Not everything is an equal priority. So figuring out what is most important in your specific position, and then looking at all the rest and saying, okay, what do I have to do that's still on this list? What can I delegate to a teammate to get done? Or quite frankly, what can I just delete? Because let's be honest, some things that are on our task list, we don't need to be doing at all. And so the first thing you want to do is figure out what your priorities are and how what priorities are most important every single week for you. Now, this is the skill that I think separates. I go back to playing college baseball, and I look at the team I had at UWM. Was I the most talented player on that team? Not even close. But we all know those stellar athletes that went from high school to college, you thought were surefire hits. They could have gone to Creighton, they could have gone to Nebraska, and then they got to college and they fizzled out. You're like, what happened to them? Sometimes it could have been an injury, but most of the time, here's why they failed. The difference between those that are successful in college and pro baseball or college and pro sports and those that fail is their ability to manage time. Because think about what happens when you move from high school to college. Everything in high school is created for you, right? You have a routine. You go to class from 7:45 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. You go straight to practice or straight to a game, and then you come home and do your homework. Once you get to college, what happens? Yeah, you might have one class on Tuesday. I know I had a couple years where I had 0 classes on a Friday. And that inability to manage your time effectively is what separates athletes, the ones that continue moving on and the ones that fizzle out. And so as leaders, the same holds true. Your ability to manage your time, especially right now, is what's going to separate you from everybody else leading their organizations right now. So when you figure out what your priorities are and what are the top 3 priorities you have every single week, you have to make sure those priorities are blocked into your calendar. Now, what I want to walk you through is what I call, or what I think are the 5 steps to planning the perfect day. This is where your priorities come in. To me, planning the perfect day or having the perfect day actually starts the night before. I think one thing each and every one of us must do before we wrap up for the day or before we go to bed is we must look at the next day. We must list out everything we need to do the next day. And just like I showed you with the game frame exercise, use that to figure out what your most important priorities are tomorrow. Now, you may have some meetings that are set in the schedule, but I guarantee if you could make that list of tomorrow, figure out what's most important, you'd pretty quickly realize what your number 1 priority is. Now, the challenge I put to you on what you do with that number 1 priority is it must be the first thing you do every morning. If there's one part of our workday we can control more than anything else, it's how we start it. So whether you start work at 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, my challenge to you is when you determine what your number 1 priority is for the next day, you immediately go in your calendar, and for that first 60, maybe 90 minutes of the day, you work on that number 1 priority. Because if the rest of the day goes to you know what in a handbag, you still got your number one priority done. Now, if the number one priority is a big meeting you have and it's already set in the schedule, that's fair. But if it's a project, if it's an activity that you have to work on to move your organization forward, make it the first thing you do every morning. So the first thing that goes into planning the perfect day is start the night before. Never go to bed knowing what your plan of action is tomorrow. The next one is owning your morning. This is the one that is throwing people so off these days, because here's how most are starting their mornings right now. You get up, grab your cup of coffee, maybe grab some breakfast, and you turn on the news, or you open your iPad and read the news. And before you've even had 5 sips of your coffee, you've got negative, 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 negative thrown at you. So after you turn the TV off, you put the iPad down, you go to your inbox. And inside your email inbox, you've got 3 emails from customers who are upset and they want immediate attention to something. By this point, you haven't even stepped in the shower and your day is already thrown off. You're already starting your day with frenetic energy. You're already starting your day with fighting fires. And before you know it, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock. And you're like, what just happened today? I just worked 10 hours, but I have no clue if I actually got anything done. What I want to show you with owning your morning is how you can literally flip that script, how you can start your day by owning it so it doesn't own you. It's some simple tips that have helped me. I want to pass on to you. If they help you, great. If you already are owning your morning right now and you have a great morning routine, awesome. A couple of things I urge you to do. Number 1, start your day reading. I don't know if there's any readers on the call right now, but open it instead of reading the news. Read something that can grow your mind. Read something that can grow your business, something inspirational. Challenge yourself to read positivity. Don't open the local news and read a bunch of negativity right now. The next thing is visualization. Some call it meditation. Some just close their eyes and visualize. What I want you to think about is visualizing the perfect day. You know what you've got going that day, because remember, you looked at your priorities the night before. Visualize what that day would look like if it went exactly the way you wanted to. In fact, the question I ask myself every day is, what would today look like if it were free and easy? If everything went exactly the way I wanted it to, what would it look like? Then from the visualization, put pen to paper. Write it out, journal it out. Literally take 3 minutes to write out what the day would look like if it were perfect. Now, the fourth piece is taking care of the body. You just took care of the mind. Now you got to take care of the body. If you're not exercising right now, I challenge you to. I think we need to exercise now more than ever, right? It's easy to be sedentary. A lot of us are working from a home office on Zoom all day. Get your body out and moving, whether it's in the morning. I know some of you may have to take care of kids and everything, but some point in that day, take time to take care of your body. If you start your day that way, reading for positivity, visualizing the perfect day, journaling the perfect day, moving the body, guys, you will go into the day with more energy, more positivity, and you are telling the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, you are ready to rock and roll that day. So starting your morning is so important. Then now you start your work day. Guess what you're going to work on? You're going to work on your 3 priorities. Now here's the trick part of this question or answer. How often do you think you actually get to all 3 priorities? How many feel by noon you're already off on a completely different tangent than you expected that day? I would say for people running the business, most of the time you're putting out fires, right? But at a minimum, if you can get that first priority done, scheduling that first meeting with yourself, you look back a month, 3 months, 6 months from now, you'll be blown away by how much progress you and your organization have made. Then you can spend the rest of the day putting out fires, but you got your most important thing done first. Now, when the day is over, you're wrapping up the day, I want you to take 5 minutes and look back and celebrate 3 wins. I don't care how small they are. Celebrate 3 wins. What are 3 things you, your team did today that moved the needle forward, even if it was an inch? So easy. It's so easy for entrepreneurs to not enjoy the journey because we're so focused on the destination and we're only going to be happy until we get to the destination. You got to enjoy the journey, celebrate the wins every single day. And then the last thing is you're just going to rinse and repeat. After you celebrate the wins, look at tomorrow, figure out what your priorities are, play the game frame, and do it all over again. Here's the key with this, guys, time management. This is boring. And I think the reason most people fail is they're not willing to handle the monotony of success every single day. Everybody wants to be Peyton Manning throwing the touchdown in the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to be LeBron James hitting the game-winning shot. But they don't want to put in the daily boredom that it takes to be successful. You do this every single day. You as a leader are going to be leading by example. You're going to be a beacon for your team. And heck, you're probably going to inspire your team to go out and do the same thing. So to me right now, understanding your daily habits, both mind and body, what are you doing to be at your best, and locking in your days, locking in your calendar might be the most important thing you can do right now as a leader. And I go back, I'll finish up the time management talking about saying this. If you do find yourself playing the producer, the manager, the leader role all in one day every single week, block your days in halves. A simple little trick. Block your days in halves. What half day are you going to be producer? What half day are you going to be manager? What half day are you going to be leader meeting with your team? It's a simple exercise that can really make sure you are hitting on all cylinders every single week. Before you plan your week, look at it, block out certain days in halves, and know that when you play that role for that half a day, that is the only role you are playing. It brings clarity, which breeds confidence, and it leads to action. So time management and owning your habits as a leader right now is something we all have to strive for. Because if we have our brand locked in, we're owning our calendar, our habits are locked in. Now the last piece I want to talk to you about is communication. Who has found communicating in a virtual setting a little challenging these days? How many are absolutely sick of Zoom meetings? Guys, here's what has made Zoom or the virtual world so unique. Go back to running a team meeting in your conference room, and you have a whole team sitting around a conference table. The difference between what happens in the conference room and what's happening on a Zoom is everything just got magnified. Think about that. If you had two teammates in the back of the conference room having a small, quiet little side conversation, and you're up front speaking, it probably really doesn't bother you. On Zoom now, when you have everybody in the Brady Bunch-like frame, the second I go like this, it just threw you off. The other thing about Zoom that magnified everything is in the conference room, your body, you literally personally took up what, 5% of the space maybe? On Zoom now, you take up 60, 70, 80% of the space. So everything you do is bigger. That's why I stand back for my keynotes, so it doesn't look like I am literally trying to jump through the screen at you. And so that ability to be on brand and be able to communicate and connect with your teammates and your clients and your prospects effectively virtually is paramount right now. And so many are failing at it. So what I want to do with you today with the communication piece is go into some super tactical tips that could really help you guys and your team. Would that be helpful? Cool. Okay. Number one, let's start with body language. As running meetings on virtual platforms right now, whether it's Zoom, GoToMeeting, whatever you use, Team, your body language is very important. I don't know if anybody in the room is like me. I'm very handsy when I speak. You got to be careful when you're on Zoom and you're handsy, because here's what's changed. Right now, standing back from you, if I just point my finger at you right now, it's not a big deal, right? Now I'm going to go off microphone for a second, but what if I do this? Now everybody on Zoom just went like this. Whoa. And so how you act on screen right now is extremely important, and being cognizant of what you're doing. The second thing is lighting. Right now, I am sitting here doing a keynote with you, and if I could show you, I have a camera light behind the desktop. I have a window behind the desktop. Then I've got the laptop, excuse me, and then I have me. We call that the lighting triad. So whenever you guys are running Zoom meetings with your team, with your prospects or your clients, think of it this way. Light source, laptop, you. If you've ever done a meeting with somebody who has their desktop facing them, but they're sitting in front of a window, they look like a ghost, don't they? You can't see them. So always say, where's the light source, whether it's artificial or outside. Put the laptop in between you and the light source, and then you. You will always give yourself the best lighting you can. The second thing is level of your laptop. Okay, so I'm going to grab the microphone because I'm going to come up to the screen right now. Here's what I see a lot of leaders doing right now that are making mistakes in virtual meetings. Number one, for God's sakes, please don't do this. We need to see you. And by the way, when your teammates are in a virtual meeting with you and they're doing this, request they be on camera, because what's probably happening if they have their camera off? They're attending a meeting while reading a book. They're attending a meeting while eating lunch and they're not paying attention. So having people on camera is so important. Now, camera, laptop height is paramount. When I am giving you guys this talk right now, if I gave it like this and I was looking down at everybody, the message I'm conveying to you is I'm more important than you. I'm looking down at you. And we have all seen people who do this, right? It looks like they're looking down at that computer. The flip side is having your computer up and you're looking up at it. I don't know if you've ever been on a Zoom call when somebody's doing this. That, as a leader, is actually conveying a little weakness. It's conveying inferiority. It's a disconnect people don't realize, a subconscious disconnect right now. People don't realize when they're not at the right angle. So when you're on Zoom, do everything you can to make sure that laptop is right at eye height. You want to be looking right at it. I've seen people do this. They've got cameras that are separate from their laptops, so they're talking and they're like this. Impossible to connect with your team or your clients when you do that. So the best thing you can do is make sure you are at height with your camera, looking right into the dot on the laptop. And that is going to give you the best chance at connecting with the person on the other side. The last thing you want to be doing is mirroring them. So if you're talking one-on-one and that person is sitting on the other side of the screen, if they're up close to the laptop, get up close. If they're far away, get far away. If they use their hands, use your hand. Mirroring the other person, especially if you're in a one-on-one Zoom meeting, is the most effective way you can create that connection, because connection right now with your team, with your prospects, with your clients is very, very hard on virtual. So those little tips, guys, with holding virtual meetings can help you take your meetings, your brand, your communication to the next level. Make sure the lighting is good. Make sure your appearance is good. And make sure the angle by which you are talking, your posture, is looking right into that camera and it is level. Another quick one I might recommend, I use this. It's got my logos on the back. This thing was $180 with the stand. If you have anybody who's a sales rep in your organization and they're doing virtual meetings right now with clients and prospects, buy them one of these. It's a great way to represent your company brand, not overly expensive, and it's better than having a client or a prospect stare at the person's dining room wall. So the communication side of virtual is very important. Now, a couple other things with virtual communication, virtual meetings. Who feels right now in the Zoom world you're just on one Zoom meeting after another? Anybody feel like they're absolutely drained by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you have those days? There is actually an electronic a force occurring in Zoom that people don't realize. So when you're sitting on a laptop and on a Zoom call, what's happening is that your computer is literally giving off energy, right? And as you're sitting there talking into the screen, you're giving back energy. And so the entire time you are on Zoom, you have these two energies going at it. And that constant pull and push is literally draining you. So as a leader, planning meetings with your team, here's a couple things I suggest. Whatever you did live, cut it in half on Zoom. If you had a 60-minute team meeting every Monday morning, make it a half hour. And then if you have to have multiple meetings in one day with your team, give them at least a 20, 30-minute break between meetings so that they can get away from the screen, go grab a bite to eat, maybe go outside for a few minutes, because you have to give them that space to detach from the energy of the laptop so they can keep their energy up all day long. The last thing you can do is use the power of the game frame to determine what you're going to talk about in a meeting. I see this happening a lot with Zoom. Your agenda is like 12 bullet points long, and somehow you're trying to get through 12 bullet points in one meeting. My challenge to you right now with Zoom meetings, with virtual meetings, whether it's with your team or your clients, is take all the things you think you need to talk about, use the game frame. If you can only pick one, which one wins, and narrow it down to 3 or 4. If you have to have a couple meetings to get it done, do that, but you're going to be much better off right now cutting your meetings shorter, cutting what you want to talk about shorter, getting to the point, and then again, if you have to run multiple meetings to get to everything, you do. So shorter, more to the point, the better right now on Zoom. Now, the last thing I want to share with communication, we'll wrap it up here, is how the heck are you communicating your organization to the market? Now, this is where I'm probably going to get called out because there's probably a marketing company on this call right now. But right now, it is very simple, guys. As a business, if you do not have an online presence, you're irrelevant. If there's one thing COVID 2020, the pandemic has taught us, is if you as a company do not have a good online presence, you're irrelevant to your market. So what I want to share with you quickly is just some very simple ways you can be communicating with the market right now that could help you stand out amongst your competition. Because remember, this is not just about leading by example. It's about standing out and growing your organization. First thing, what are you doing for social media? Most of you are probably on it right now, but what are you guys doing with social media to make sure your organization is top of mind? 5 things you can be talking about right now that I think are super effective on social media, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Number 1, personal stories. So if it's you, one of your sales reps, a teammate on the organization, share personal stories of things you have gone through that teach lessons for your target audience. Personal stories right now on social media, even for companies, is more impactful than it's ever been. People want to hear personal stories. Second thing, educational content. Are you putting out educational content on social media? He or she who shares the most right now, especially in 2020, is going to win. Number 3, social media credibility. What awards, what recognition is your company getting right now? Were you featured on a podcast? Were you featured in a magazine? Throw that up on social media. Testimonials and case studies. You have clients, I'm sure, that have walked through your process and have had massive success. Share that. If you guys do that consistently right now as an organization, you will win, because again, today it's about a game of attention. And when we all went virtual, that attention just got harder to grab. Second thing is emails. Most of you are probably using an email campaign right now to talk to your prospects and your clients, right? Here's my challenge. I know I come from the health insurance industry, and what most insurance agencies are terrible at is their emails consist of grabbing something off of some generic platform and just sharing it. Or they provide the company newsletter. No one's reading that anymore. Take time with emails to your target audience to write good emails that tell them about what you do, how you do it, who you do it for. Block time to write emails as if they're coming from you. Webinars. This is kind of a webinar right now, even though it's a keynote. The more you do webinars and you bring your prospects to you right now, the better you're going to be. Public speaking. What I am doing right now as a leader of your organization, if you have a chance to grow your business right now and you know who or where your target audience is, go find opportunities to get on camera. Public speaking has never been easier. Why? Who here is afraid of public speaking because you might have to stand on stage in front of everybody? Now public speaking occurs in your dining room, your living room, your home office. You don't have to be in front of an actual audience. You're just in front of a laptop with a dot that I'm looking at. So take the opportunity right now, if you can get out and speak to organizations, associations that your target audience finds itself in, it is going to make you more effective. It's going to make you the authority in your market. And then last, but certainly not least, is your website. One of the biggest mistakes I see right now, I see health insurance agencies making this, I see small businesses making this, is what you are saying to the market, what's coming out of your mouth sounds great, but what's on your website doesn't back it up. So when you align your brand, your message with the website and who you're speaking to, that's when the magic happens. So I wanted to just share this, guys. Simple, I call it the 5 pillars of awareness. But today as an organization, as a leader, you have a brand, your company has a brand. Winning the game of attention is what you have to do today to grow your business. So I'll wrap up by saying this, guys. I know I kind of went through a lot right there. When I go back to my pro baseball career, did I have what it took to make it to the majors? I have no idea. But what I do know is I failed to make it because when I got to pro ball, I failed to live out my childhood dream because I went off brand. I completely got away from the habits, the off the field stuff, the time management that made me successful in high school and college. And I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to lead by example. I failed. And 2020 is unlike anything we have ever seen before, right? I think we can all agree on that. Nobody saw this coming. Leadership is being tested like never before. This stuff wasn't in the playbook. So moving forward, leadership is going to require all of us to lead by example, not just by title. And the best way to do that is to know exactly who you are. What is your brand? How do you want people to perceive you? Do you have your habits? Do you have your time management skills locked in every single day to be your best? And how are you effectively communicating your leadership to your team and your clients? You do all 3 of those things well right now. Your team, your family, your clients are going to want to do business with you. They're going to want to follow you, and you will take your business, your family, and your team and launch it into the future. So I hope this was impactful, guys. I know I threw a lot in there, but the thing I want to leave with you is focus on the brand, focus on the habits and the time management, and focus on how you're communicating. And I promise you good things will happen. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Andy. That was awesome. There weren't any questions unless anyone has any to throw up real quick, but I want you to know that it was great. We really liked it.
Cool. I will say this, Shay, if I can. We do, if anybody wants to know more, a colleague of mine and I are running a launch workshop. We call it Launch, where we work with teams privately, going through those 3 principles: branding, time management, habits, and communication. If anybody wants to learn more, I know, Shay, you've got my email address. You can give them my email address and we can have a conversation offline. But again, guys, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. I hope this was helpful. We're in strange times right now, and I think moving forward, leadership's not going to be what it used to be. So if you can master those 3 things, I think everything will be just fine.
Awesome.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you so much.
Andy.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it.
See ya.
Have a good one.
All right. So that was Andy Neary talking about leadership mindset. We are going to take a